Hey guys, I'm Ivory. Today I'm going to be doing a 2-day wear test on the Rare Beauty Liquid Touch Weightless Foundation. I'll be showing you how the foundation applies initially as well as checking in throughout the day to show you how it wears. For anyone that's new, I have oily and acne prone skin, so a lot of my wear tests are catered towards people with similar skin types. And if you find that this review is helpful, I will link up in the cards a playlist of all the other foundations that I've reviewed. But before we get into it, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I try to post new videos every single week. I am not doing so great lately, but you know, with life you get ebbs and flows. Also be sure to follow me on my social media. Everything is _ivorypcherry. So before we begin, let me break down each of the days because I don't do the same thing on day 1 and day 2. If you're already familiar with my wear test, then you can skip this part. I'll put a timestamp somewhere on the screen. Also, I'll be putting timestamps in my description box below, so feel free to skip around if you need to. Essentially, half my face I will use primer, the other half of my face I will just put the foundation directly onto my skin, and also half my face I'm going to be using a sponge, and then the other half of my face I'm going to be using a brush. Did I say that right? Yes, I said that right. Brush, sponge. Just to show you how the foundation is going to look using 2 very common applicators. And then depending on the results of today, I'm going to use that for day 2. And then day 2, I will also be adding powder underneath my foundation, which is a trick that I've learned that helps prolong oils from coming through. And then also day 2, I'll be showing you what the foundation looks like in natural lighting. If you couldn't already tell, this is not natural lighting. I have soft boxes, I have a ring light. So I'll be showing you how it looks more realistically on that day. And also day 2 is just so that it helps solidify any opinions I have about the foundation. Sometimes with foundations, I'm not sure if I really like it on day 1, so I just need the extra day to really figure it out. And I think that's it. So let's actually talk about the foundation. This is what the foundation will look like. It is very matte. There's like a little ball in here, kind of like nail polish, to shake up the foundation. And then when you open this up, it has a doe foot applicator. For anyone that doesn't know, Rare Beauty is Selena Gomez's cosmetics line. I believe this is her first launch. She came out with foundations, concealers, cream blushes. Everything was pretty much cream, but I have not seen any reviews. I try not to look at reviews when I'm gonna buy the product and review it for myself. All right, so let's first go in with primer. I'm gonna be using the L'Oreal Infallible Matte Lock. I'm gonna apply that to the entire half of my face. All right, I'm gonna start off by using a brush. I'm using the Sigma Round Kabuki, which is the F82, and I'm gonna apply that to one half of my face. I'm really worried. Is this shade too dark? I really hate online shopping for a foundation specifically, or just in general actually, because even trying on shoes and clothes, you know, you just have to try it first before buying it. But here in Illinois, COVID cases are not really getting any better, which is really frustrating because we've come to a point where America seems to not even be doing anything about COVID. At this point, we're just living with it. Like, we're just supposed to be okay with not traveling, limiting seeing our friends and family, just because people don't want to take the proper precautions to be safe. And it's so frustrating. All right, I'm actually surprised because the foundation looks like it's a good match for me. I have a friend who we consider ourselves foundation twins, and she got a lot lighter of a shade than me. So I was really worried that this was gonna be too dark, but it looks okay, right? By the way, the shade I'm using is 290N. I'm gonna go ahead and lather it again over here. And then this time on this side, I'm using a microfiber sponge by Juno & Co. This foundation is supposed to feel weightless while providing buildable medium to full coverage with a natural finish. The bottle contains 1 fluid ounce and retails for $29. Okay, so this is one layer of the foundation, and I love the finish of this, first of all. It is so nice and natural, like it said it would be. But a lot of times they just be putting that in the description and they don't even mean it. But this one is. It's not a flat matte. It has a little bit of life to it. On a first layer, what do you think? It's medium, right? I hear you guys through the lens just shaking your head like, yes, I read medium. That's what I was gonna say. As far as the brush side and the sponge side, I actually think they're pretty neck and neck. Actually, I think maybe this side has a little bit more coverage just because I did add about the same amount of foundation for each side, but this side was a little bit worse in terms of like the redness and unevenness. So I think the sponge actually helped give it a little bit more coverage so that the 2 sides do look even. But either way, I think both sides look nice. I'm gonna go ahead and add a second layer to see how it builds up. Okay, so this is the oh my god. All right, so this is the second layer. The coverage definitely went up to medium full. I also want to say that when I apply this, there's definitely a slick to it. It's almost kind of oily, like greasy feeling. I definitely felt it as I was applying it and spreading it around, but it doesn't look oily at all. But the texture of it, there's definitely like a slickness to it. Maybe it's just a really runny foundation, but either way, I just wanted to comment on that. I also wanted to say that I do have scabbing and dry patches on my chin area, just because you can see like a lot of my acne is there. The foundation is not picking up on that. Like, it's not clinging to it. It's just kind of camouflaging it. I'm trying not to be super excited about this because every single time I really love a foundation initially, it just ends up falling flat towards the end. So it's just, you know what, I'm gonna say it's okay, it's all right, whatever. But honestly, like, I do really like the way this foundation looks. I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of my face, and as always, all of the products that I use will be in my description box below. Alright, so this is what my base is looking like with everything put together. I've been wearing the foundation for about an hour now. Yes, it did take me that long to get ready. I decided to do a wing today and I haven't done one in months. So that took up the majority of the time. But in the hour, I'm already getting the foundation to settle in my forehead wrinkle, which is not great. I mean, an hour in and it's already like creasing and stuff. That's the only place though that has an issue, so I just wanted to show you that. But that is it for now. I have a lot of errands to do, so this foundation is gonna go through it. I have to go outside, I have to walk my dogs, I have to go grocery shopping, so I'll be wearing a mask, so we'll see how that goes. Why couldn't I have gotten the creasing down here where the mask would cover, you know, whatever. But that is it for now. I'm gonna be wearing this foundation for 10 hours today, so I will check in around the halfway point. All right, it is the 7-hour mark, a little later than I would have liked to check in. Something happened. While I was grocery shopping, my mask completely ruined my nose, my chin area. And I don't know if you can see, I mean, I can see from the viewfinder, but right here, here, and here, the folds from my face mask creased right here. It actually looked a lot worse initially, but as my oils came through, I don't know, it kind of just blended the foundation for me. I did not buff this out. You should have seen me a couple hours ago. Like, this was really visible. When I came home, I put all the groceries in the kitchen and I'm like, look at my face, to my husband. And he's like, oh, that looks really bad. And I'm like, cool, thanks, I feel so much better. But I showed him what my face looks like now and it actually looks a lot better. I tried to buff it, but honestly, I'm not gonna touch it too much. You remember the episode on SpongeBob where Patrick and SpongeBob get paint on Mr. Krabs' first dollar and they try to get rid of the paint and they just make it worse? I was afraid that situation was gonna happen, so I'm just gonna leave it. It is what it is. I promise you on day 2, I will not be wearing a mask whatsoever. So I'll be able to see how it actually wears with no complications. But at least now we know that the foundation, even though I set it down quite heavily, it will transfer quite a bit on your mask. So I know this is all distracting. I'm gonna try and focus on the areas that have been untouched. As far as oiliness, I don't think it's that bad. I'd say it's okay. I definitely am shinier than I was before, but I wouldn't blot at this point. If you remember, at 1 hour, there was some creasing in my smile line, and actually it looks better. Quite a few of my foundations do that. I don't know how to explain it. I'm guessing the way my oils mix with the foundation, it kind of just like buffs itself out. I don't know, either way, I'm not complaining here. My cheeks, for the most part, are intact. My nose, it's ruined because of the mask, but from what I can see on the sides, it's unaffected. It's not separating, it's not too oily. And on my chin, same situation, even though quite a bit of it has rubbed off. Overall, I felt like it would have worn okay, just because some of the areas, they have stayed in place. There's just a little bit of cracking, but I'm really looking for it. And at 7 hours, it looks okay. I think if I didn't go grocery shopping today, the foundation would have actually held up pretty nicely. We'll obviously have to see if I was right on day 2. But overall, I feel like this is a pretty good situation. Not too shiny, everything seems to be staying okay. As far as this side was the primer side, I believe. I don't see any noticeable difference in terms of oiliness, but I think that is it for this check-in. I will come back in a couple more hours to give you my final thoughts on day 1. All right, we have reached 10 hours. As far as the side with primer and without primer, I don't see a difference. So day 2, I probably won't wear a primer since I don't see any noticeable difference. I am quite shiny, and usually around this time, my makeup feels really heavy, but it actually feels pretty lightweight. Right here on my chin, at the 7-hour mark, there was subtle cracking, and I don't feel like there has been any real change since then. The forehead wrinkle, it's just gone. How does that happen? It's just gone. And I never got a crease in my smile line. So other than the oiliness, I actually think that this held together really well. I'm gonna go ahead and blot. These are from Amazon. They're not my favorite, so instead I'm gonna link the ones that I prefer in my description box below. All right, I went ahead and blotted only half my face so that we could see a side-by-side comparison. Touching up on my cheeks, I definitely see some coverage has been lost. Same situation up here. I have like this patch of foundation just missing. So you'll definitely lose a little bit of coverage when you blot. Definitely not the worst thing that I've ever seen, but for me personally, if I had to make the decision, I probably wouldn't blot. I would just take off the foundation. I want to save most of my thoughts for the end of this video. That way I don't sound super repetitive. But on day 1, I do like both applicators, whether you use a sponge or a brush. I thought they worked out great. I had a couple hiccups in the beginning with that forehead wrinkle, but it kind of just buffed itself out, which okay. It worked perfectly fine with no primer underneath. And at 10 hours, I feel like the foundation looks pretty good. But like I said, I probably would take it off at this point. I don't think it would be worth it to blot. That is it for day 1. I will see you tomorrow. All right, so it's day 2. And as far as I can recall, primer made little to no difference. So I'm actually going to skip that step today. We're going to go straight in with powder next. I did go ahead and moisturize about 20 minutes ago. I'm sorry if you can hear some background noise. My husband, he's showering upstairs, so you can probably hear the water running. Unfortunately, that's one of the cons about having your filming set up in the basement, like you hear everything. I'm next gonna go in with powder. I'm using the Dermablend loose setting powder. I'm gonna use a puff and I'm gonna apply that to all the areas where I get the oiliest. I'm not gonna powder my whole face today because I felt like for the most part the foundation stayed intact. It was just when I self-sabotaged and wore a mask. That will not be happening today. All right, and then I'm just gonna go in with the foundation. I'm gonna use my microfiber sponge. One thing I don't like about the packaging, I don't mind the doe foot, but you can see the lid, it's super dirty. There's product all over it, and because there's, I don't know, like oil or something mixing, it feels slick around the rim, and you can see the cap inside. It's really messy. So I just really don't like how much residue there is on the outside. I think I let it set a little bit too long. It's getting a little bit too hard to drag. Yeah, with this foundation, I would recommend not letting it sit for too long. I'm not necessarily saying you have to work in sections or anything. Just don't wait more than a minute or two, because I see some spots are missing, like I couldn't drag them because I let it sit for too long because I was talking. So I'm just actually gonna take the residue that's already on the cap just to clean it up, and I'm gonna fill those areas. This will be my second layer. All right, so I'm done applying my foundation. I'm noticing that the areas where I added powder, specifically my nose and my chin, the foundation is not laying as smoothly as it normally does. I'm pretty sure it's the powder because there's nothing else that's different here. I don't think this has ever happened with this powder. I have had it happen to other powders though, but it is not laying very nicely. I'm not really sure if I should just take it off and redo these sections, but that was kind of the point of today's wear test. I think I'm gonna have to redo it because there's no way for me to really know if the foundation later on breaks up around my nose. I'm never gonna really know if it's because it already looked not perfect initially, or if it's because the foundation actually would have done that anyways. I'm gonna leave it everywhere else though, because it actually looks okay in all the other areas that I powdered. It's mostly my nose, and we're just gonna redo it. All right, it looks way better now, so I think crisis is averted. I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of my face off of camera because I always do the exact same steps pretty much every day. So if you saw day 1, then you've seen my makeup routine for the past like 3 years. So I think that is it for now. So the next time that you see me, it'll be probably like the halfway point, 5 hours, and I will be showing you what it looks like in natural lighting. All right, it is the 6-hour mark, and oil-wise, I feel like it's doing really well. It doesn't look too shiny or greasy. On my cheek areas especially, everything looks really good. And same thing on my forehead. I'm pretty shine free, and all the areas where I would normally get creasing and settling in my smile lines and my forehead wrinkle, at 6 hours it hasn't really happened yet, so that's a good sign. I do want to comment on my nose and my chin area. My nose, especially when I was doing my makeup off camera, when I was trying to blend products on my nose, having that foundation as the base, it was just making it really hard for my products to stick to it. So it just wasn't laying very nicely. And all the products that I use are products that I use constantly. So my nose doesn't look at its best because I just wasn't able to work with it as easily as I normally did with other foundations. You can sort of see it more on my chin area actually right now. Something about this area looks just extra bumpy. I mean, it's all staying together. It just looks worn, like I've been wearing this longer than I actually have. But the only thing that I changed today is having powder underneath, so I'm gonna go ahead and say that I probably wouldn't put powder underneath this foundation. I had a problem with it at the beginning when I applied it on my nose, and it seems to be another problem down here by my chin where I also powdered, so I think that's the culprit. So I'm just gonna say that if you are trying this foundation, if you normally powder and it doesn't look great, try and skip that step to see if it'll make a difference. But overall, I actually do think that this looks pretty good. I do think some areas are better than others. I will save all my final thoughts till the end, so I think that's it for now. See you in a couple more hours. All right, so it is the end of day 2, and oil-wise, I actually feel like the foundation still is doing really well. I think I actually would be okay with not touching this up, and if I remember correctly, this foundation didn't do too well with me blotting. So the fact that after 10 hours, I'm not nearly as greasy as I anticipated is great. The nose area as well as the chin area is still not the best, but everywhere else, like my cheeks, they're holding together really well. My forehead looks good. T-zone is all right. I mean, it's about as good as it's gonna be at 10 hours. Seems to be all the areas that I didn't powder that ended up looking good. So, I mean, just do trial and error. It seems to me that powdering underneath my foundation was the wrong way to go, but for you it might work. So, you know, just experiment. That's what I was doing here. So let's talk about the good and the bad about the foundation before I give my recommendation. What I do like about this foundation is how lightweight it feels. After 10 hours, usually at the end of the day, I just feel like the foundation is weighing me down. Like it's so heavy, especially nowadays since I rarely wear makeup. Even wearing a thin layer for more than 4 hours, I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to take this off. But this actually feels really lightweight. I love the finish of it. The coverage is pretty decent and it's very buildable. And overall at 10 hours, I feel like it held together pretty well and also didn't look too oily on me. You know, sometimes these natural dewy foundations, not that this is dewy, I don't think it was advertised as that, but it definitely didn't say matte anywhere in the title. But anything that doesn't say matte, I should say, sometimes is a little bit tricky for people with oily skin, but I think overall it did okay on me. The things I don't like about this foundation, it seems to be hit or miss on how well it wears on certain areas. The nose and my chin area, it just seems like a vast difference than the rest of my face. So it just doesn't seem super consistent. Again, it could be the powder thing, but you know, I did take off the powder off my nose though, so I'm not really sure why it reacted the way it did. But today when I was applying other products on top of my foundation, it was not cooperating. So it's almost like I don't know how the foundation is going to behave on a certain day. What if I really need to rely on it? I don't need it to be acting weird, you know what I mean? I just want to be able to depend on it, put on my makeup and just go. Another thing I don't like is the packaging. Like I said, I don't mind the doe foot, but this area is just so dirty. Another drawback is you can't really touch up with this foundation. You can, but I don't think it would look great. So if you wanted to wear this more than 10 hours and you had to touch up at the 10-hour mark, you might find yourself in a pickle. But 10 hours of wear is a decent amount of time to be wearing foundation. Overall, I like the foundation. It is not my favorite foundation. It's one of those products, you know, where you like a makeup product just enough that you don't return it. It's like, it's not my favorite thing, but I like it enough that I don't want to go through the hassle of bringing it back to Sephora. That's how I feel about this foundation, so take that as you will. I don't think I would repurchase this, but I would still use this in the sense where I probably would mix this with another foundation that I really like. With that all being said, I do recommend this foundation, but I will admit I am a little bit hesitant about that recommendation. I think it works and it looks decent on me, but I'm not super excited about this one. Basically, my recommendation is if you have absolutely no more foundations and you really wanted to try it, go ahead and try it and see if it works out for you. But if you already have a bunch of foundations that are working for you, I would say skip this one. But that is it for this review. I hope that it was helpful for you, and if it was, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and feel free to comment down below what foundation I should try next. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.